homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen. Today we are making something that I have wanted to try making for many years, which is homemade Nutella. And Nutella is just sugar and cocoa powder and hazelnuts, and probably a few other things. I'll look up the ingredients and put it on the screen here for you. And I love hazelnuts. I've always loved hazelnuts. One of my earliest childhood memories is we were living in the Ozarks in Missouri, and hazelnuts or filberts, there's actually a native species that grows wild in that area. And my dad had found a tree and gone out and collected some of the nuts and cracked a few for me. And I remember sitting in front of the fireplace when I was probably 3.5 and him handing me a hazelnut to eat and it just being the most delicious thing I had ever tasted. So I have always loved the flavor of these. And so I like Nutella, but it is way too sweet for me. And so I literally never buy it because it's just like smearing sugar on toast, and that's not who I am or what I do. So the idea of being able to make my own basically nut butter with some cocoa and a little bit of sugar in it, so homemade Nutella, was something that I was really excited about. We used to live in Colorado. We had a small farm in Colorado for many years in the Bayfield area, which is in the Four Corners, Durango chunk of the state. And we were almost 7,000 feet, and it was so cold and the soil was not quite right for nut trees. And so we were never able to grow nut trees in the 10 years that we were there. And I grew up in Northern California where nut trees were really common, and we had English walnuts all over the property. So I really wanted nuts on my farm. It's a great source of protein. It's a great source of fats. And so if you're looking at like long-term sustainability on the place that you're living, having nut trees is a big deal. And so we got here and we already had some English walnut trees, but I wanted to expand that. And the first thing we did was we planted filberts or hazelnuts. I'm using the term interchangeably. They're actually two different species. One of them is Northern European and one of them is native to North America. I'll put the details on the screen. And unfortunately, the first batch that we planted here did not do well. And I think it was a combination mostly of issues with gophers. We had a lot of gophers on this property when we first moved here, and the gophers just ate the roots. And so the first time that we tried, the plants held on for about 4 years, but we didn't get much growth, and they kind of fizzled out, and then eventually they died. And I think the gophers were just eating the roots, and so the plants never really got established. And so I took a couple-year break, and then we planted some new ones. Filberts you have to have 2 different varieties to cross-pollinate in order to get nuts. So you've got to have at least 2 plants, and they need to be not genetically exactly the same. And so I bought a couple of more plants and put them out in a different part of the property. And those have actually done really well. And so for the past 3 years, we've had a pretty decent crop of filberts. And this year in particular, we had a really nice crop of filberts. And so this is what they look like just raw off of the tree. They will fall out of the little husks that hold them when they're ripe and fall onto the ground. And then you have to go out and pick them up. And they will hold in the shell for a very long time. So I've actually had a basket of these sitting on my coffee table where we sit and watch television, and I just kind of ignored them for a really long time. I finally just went through all of those and shelled them out, and that's actually what I ended up using in the Nutella. And so this is this year's crop, but the Nutella that I made was last year's crop of hazelnuts. When they're in the shell, they hold a very long time. Once they're shelled, you should keep them in the freezer. So don't just throw them on the counter or throw them in the fridge. They really need to be frozen. They are very high in fat, and the type of oil that's in this is not super shelf stable, and so they will go rancid pretty quickly. It's one of the reasons why I'm always hesitant to buy hazelnuts at the grocery store, because you don't know how long they've been sitting, shelled. And like if you were to buy one of those packs in the baking aisle for something baking wise, those might be rancid. And if you're ever buying them in bulk at the grocery store, just look around, make sure nobody's going to yell at you and get you in trouble, but taste one and make sure that they're still good, because they can go rancid in storage pretty quickly. So we keep them frozen when we're not using them. The actual process of making the Nutella is super fast and easy. The thing that I thought was going to take the most time was taking the papery husks off of the shelled nuts. And it turns out if you roast them in the oven at 400 degrees for 7 minutes or so, those papery husks just basically go poof, and they open up and you can rub them with your hands and it comes right off. So that was really refreshing because I thought that was going to be the worst part of the whole process. And then you just make the Nutella like you're making nut butter, and you can control the density of this and you can control the sugar of this just by how you mix it. This is a little bit loose. And if I had it to do again, I added some coconut oil at the end of this because I was afraid it was going to be too thick. And the reality is I didn't really need it. And so this is a little looser than I want it to be. And so next time I make this, I won't add the coconut oil. But absolutely delicious. And I've been having fun playing with it. We are going to do a chocolate cake for a holiday party. It's my classic Hershey's back of the container of cocoa powder chocolate cake. I may have a video on it. If I do, I'll put a link to it. And I've been making that for years. And what I'm going to do is put half the batter in a bundt pan and then pour a bunch of Nutella in the center and then put the rest of the batter in the bundt pan so that the middle has this kind of fudge Nutella middle. I have no idea if it's going to work. It's going to be fun. And then we'll drizzle a little over the top of the bundt. So looking forward to doing that. And then I'm also going to try making some Nutella chocolate cookies for Christmas gifts this year. So yeah, having a lot of fun playing around with Nutella. If you've ever wanted to try making it, you can make this just from store-bought hazelnuts. Just make sure that they're fresh and not rancid when you do. Let's get started. So here's a little bit more about hazelnuts and growing hazelnuts while we make this hazelnut butter in real time. Hazelnuts are members of the birch family, which makes sense if you've ever looked at an alder or a birch in comparison. They're similar. And over 90% of all hazelnuts that are sold commercially in the United States come out of Oregon. And so most of the research on hazelnuts for commercial crops is coming out of Oregon State University. There are three main types of hazelnuts that are typically grown. Two of them are native to North America. One is the beaked hazelnut and one is the American hazelnut. Both of those have thicker shells and smaller nuts versus the European variety, which tends to have a larger, thinner shelled nut and drops its nuts when it's ripe, which makes it really easy to harvest. But they tend to have issues with diseases. And so there is some hybridization or crossing going on purpose in order to try to expand the disease resistant of the European variety. The European variety is what is typically sold in nurseries. And if you're looking to grow hazelnuts on your property, it's a good idea to find one that is resistant to eastern blight. And those varieties often come out of Oregon State University. And just like that, homemade Nutella. If you do decide to do this, keep good notes so that you can adjust your sweetness and your density accordingly if you make it again. But yeah, this was really fast and easy, and I've been having a lot of fun incorporating it into different holiday dishes. So give it a try, tribe. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment, and share. I have new content coming out every week.